We are excited to share our local food for local restaurants incentive bill proposal presented by me, Cynthia James Stewart, Mandy Magill, and Jarrod Ferstl. Thank you for listening. I want to start with a short story that led to the inception of this bill. My husband and I opened a food cart on the property of my family's ranch in 2010 so that we could serve the delicious grass-fed only beef and dairy and our own organic vegetables and eggs that were produced on the ranch. We grew quickly and continued this model by supporting other organic local farmers and ranchers. The demand grew to the point that we needed to build a building that housed the restaurant and a market, which supported small-scale local agriculture. During these past 14 years, we have demonstrated that it is financially feasible to commit to serving local nutrient-dense ingredients to our guests. We've also learned how important it is that we support a local food economy. But not only that, when we do, we support small-scale farmers and ranchers who are caring for the soil, thus contributing to the health of our customers and the planet. Once I researched that the average household spends 49% of their food budget at restaurants, I realized that if other restaurant owners sourced locally, even a small percentage of what I do, the ripple effect could be incredibly impactful on our local food economy, people's health, and our soil health for the planet. As a restaurant owner, I know the price difference between local and industrial ingredients, and they can be 3 times more. So it seemed appropriate to offer a tax credit to incentivize other restaurants to make this shift in purchasing habits and to start building relationships with their local farmers and ranchers. We are asking for a 20% tax credit to incentivize restaurants to purchase local, nutrient-dense, non-toxic, regenerative food in place of industrial food. Why is this bill so important? Because the current purchasing pattern and food sourcing systems for our restaurants is industrial, subsidized, cheap, and easy accessible food that is genetically altered, chemically treated, and has diminished nutrient density due to being grown in dead soil. It's sobering to reflect that over the last 70 years, the level of every nutrient in almost every kind of food has fallen between 10 and 100%. For example, you have to eat 6 potatoes grown in dead soil to equal the nutrient density of 1 potato grown in healthy soil. You have to eat 5 servings of kale to get the nutrient density of 1 serving grown in healthy soil. You need to eat 15 industrial grapes to equal the nutrient density of 1 regenerative grape. And also, grass-fed meat and dairy are higher in antioxidants, beta-carotene, and vitamin D than grain-fed and feedlot cattle.
The results from having dead soil and eating industrial produced food is causing citizens to eat food which is proven to result in obesity and other chronic diseases, creating an unhealthy, obese, disease-ridden country. People in our country are suffering. 42.4% of adults and 24.5% of children are obese. 12.9% of consumer private payer spending is based on obesity. One of the major ripple effects from eating nutrient lacking and toxic food is the fact that we have seen an inflation-adjusted 662% increase in national healthcare spending over the past 50 years. This is not even mentioning the ever-increasing mental and emotional health struggles of not only our citizens, but also our farmers and ranchers. According to the National Rural Health Association, the rate of suicide among farmers is 3.5 times higher than the general population.
When we continue to largely support industrial agriculture and food, the physical and mental health crises are only part of the tragedy. The ripple effect of industrial food is even more severe and far-reaching. Industrial agriculture has been one of the biggest ways in which humans have disconnected from nature and thus are suffering the result of poor personal, societal, and planetary health. To further illustrate our current predicament, industrial agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to the extreme imbalance of our planet's health and systems. Due to this destructive treatment of land and thus the lack of soil health, we have consequently also broken the planet's natural return route for carbon being sequestered in the soil via photosynthesis and a healthy soil microbiome. The combination of fossil fuel use and industrial ag has created a legacy load of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, and the oceans are taking the brunt of it, contributing to the increasing acidification and warming of our oceans. This all creates a lack of balance in all of Earth's systems as everything is connected, which leads to ever-increasing and extreme vulnerability to more drought, floods, wildfires, erosion, and extreme storms. Billion-dollar disasters are increasing in frequency across the U.S. As a couple of examples, we have Colorado's increased wildfire activity from drought in just the last 20 years. 4 of the top 5 largest wildfires in Colorado have occurred very recently, between 2018 and 2020. And as you can see from these stats, we are seeing worsening drought. Meanwhile, in the 23-24 budget in Colorado, we decreased funding for soil health, small food business grants, community food access programs, and the agricultural workforce, which is going in the opposite direction from what we need. And as Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them.
Since we know that the average household spends 49% of their food budget at restaurants, one solution to reversing these vicious cycles is to incentivize restaurants with a 20% tax credit to purchase local regenerative food. The beneficial ripple effect is very exciting, including massively supporting Colorado's small-scale, hardworking farmers and ranchers who care for the soil, and creating the demand and ability for more farmers and ranchers to do the same. And what about water? For every 1% of soil organic matter added to an acre of land via regenerative management, that acre can hold an extra 20,000 gallons of water. This helps to recharge underground aquifers too. There are farmers and ranchers out there adding 5, 6, 7% soil organic matter to their land through regenerative management, like Rocky Farms in the San Luis Valley, where many farmers struggle for access to water. Approximately 57.6 billion tons of topsoil have been lost in the U.S. in the last 160 years, mostly off of poorly managed agricultural land. Here's an example of how regenerative versus desertification looks. This is in Boulder, Colorado. On the left is Boulder County open space. It has become desertified, and the wind has taken the land down to the subsoil due to the lack of beneficial animal impact. Sharing a fence line on the right is a regenerative farm. This land is healthy, with good soil, good topsoil, with organic matter due to regenerative land management, including keeping roots in the ground year-round and utilizing beneficial animal impact.
The creation of endlessly regenerative and healthy cycles is possible because when we heal the land, we heal everything, including ourselves. Because nature's natural state is to be constantly regenerating, our personal and planetary health concerns can be drastically reduced if large purchasers like restaurants increasingly support local and regenerative. And with more carbon being sequestered on land due to regenerative agriculture and the resulting increase in photosynthetic capacity, we even help to begin unburdening the oceans as they won't be absorbing as much carbon dioxide. All of this in turn also supports our farmers and ranchers' financial, physical, and mental emotional health, along with their families too. Nature's health is our health. We will create a foundation of health and vitality that will benefit both Colorado's rural and urban communities. To be clear, this is a transition for all of us, and everyone needs to be involved and loved through this transition to local and regenerative. It is a series of events that have led us here, and it is really no one's fault, as no one could foresee where this would all lead. Post-World War II, wartime chemicals were turned into peacetime food production chemicals, and somewhat understandably, because the goal was to grow as much food as possible. It was in the 1970s when the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz, said the now infamous words, "Plant fence row to fence row and get big or get out." At that time, no one realized how deeply and negatively impactful these words would be. And now we are decades and decades into the destructive legacy this has created. It might be easy to think that industrial farmers and ranchers are to blame. However, this would be a mistaken assumption. Many don't realize how stuck they are in this industrial system. And to be honest, we are all stuck. At the heart of it, farmers and ranchers are stewards of the land and they care deeply. Thus, they need our understanding and they need our support to get out of this destructive kind of agriculture that has greatly diminished soil health and everyone's health over the years, and into a type of agriculture that is both healing and healthy for all of us. The more demand there is for local, regenerative food, the faster industrial farmers and ranchers can transition, and we will also be helping young agrarians to be able to enter regenerative agriculture too.
I think we can all agree that our citizens need healthier soil to generate healthier food. The National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute found that increased intake of foods with high nutrient density can help to break the intergenerational cycle of malnutrition and obesity. According to the New York Times, a large population studies have found that people who eat a lot of nutrient-dense foods report less depression and greater levels of happiness and mental well-being. Now, how does this potentially tie into lowering our state's healthcare costs? Thanks to studies that have linked higher intakes of nutrients with lower health risks, we were able to calculate a low percentage assumption on what the state would save from fostering a healthier population. If we decreased non-communicable diseases by only 1% and decreased depression by 1% as well, by incentivizing nutrient-dense foods in restaurants, we would save the state of Colorado approximately $28 million.
This small incentive is a drop in Colorado's budget bucket and could start a positive ripple effect, as well as strengthening current bills and initiatives such as STAR, Zero Foodprint, and community food access programs. Here's an example of the potential financial impact this tax credit would have on Colorado based on an average restaurant's gross income of $1.3 million a year. The average food cost for a restaurant grossing that income is $390,000. If they were to only have 10% of their ingredients sourced locally, that would be $39,000. Now multiply that times the 20% tax credit. They would receive $7,800 for the year. Currently, there are approximately 12,900 restaurants in Colorado. For now, if only 10% were to commit to sourcing this way, that would lead us to 1,290 restaurants getting a $7,800 tax credit, which would equal just over $10 million a year in tax credits. So in 2022, Colorado restaurants brought in $426 million in state sales tax revenue, which does not include local tax or the taxes generated from the 11% of the population that restaurants employ. At the end of the day, this tax credit would only equal 2% of that collected sales tax revenue.
Along with the 20% tax credit incentive for restaurants, there will need to be a series of things in place to ensure that restaurants will be able to successfully implement this transition. Things like an online database marketplace, relationship building assistance between restaurants and farmers and ranchers, marketing and promotional tools for websites and social media, etc., education for staff and customers, and other necessary onboarding and implementation processes. For some specifics, we are looking at a tax credit timeframe of 5 years, and then we will reevaluate. The goal is to have 10% of Colorado's restaurants sourcing at least 10 to 25% from their local regenerative farmers and ranchers. Measurables would include things like seeing an increase in the number of restaurants sourcing local regenerative, the number of regenerative farms and ranches increasing, an increase in carbon sequestration, water retention, and biodiversity on various farm ranch specified test plots, increase in food nutrient density, and a decrease in elimination of pesticides and synthetic fertilizers, decrease in healthcare costs, and a decrease in farmer rancher suicide rates. So what exactly is regenerative agriculture? It's simple, really. It is a process that asks us to return to the indigenous roots of agriculture and to partner with nature. There are many ideas and various methods to regenerating land and nature. Ultimately, it is listening to, learning from, and thinking like nature. The best thing we can do when trying to define and implement regenerative agriculture is to, 1, gather ideas by having open conversations with each other and with nature, 2, then implement those ideas while doing our best to mimic nature. And 3, evaluate the impacts and outcomes and start the process again. In this, we can never go wrong. There is potential opposition from big ag, big food, large food distributors, and big pharma, and we welcome their involvement in this much needed transition. We are excited that this incentive is the first of its kind, and it situates Colorado as even more of a standout leader in the local regenerative movement. We already have and see great traction with local regenerative food hubs popping up around Colorado, a community food access program bill that recently passed, 2 new bills that are in the works for regenerative ag and beginning farmers, and proven consumer awareness and desire for food grown and raised in this way. The timing really couldn't be better, as people and the planet cannot wait any longer for robust and impactful proactive health solutions.
And we already have some support with a sponsor by Senator Cleve Simpson, and a coalition built by Colorado Department of Agriculture, STAR program, including East Denver Food Hub, Lance Wheeler from Rafter WJ, Katrina Blair, Turtle Lake Refuge, and stakeholders like Sarah Gleason from the Savory Institute and the EOV project director, and also a rancher owner of Gleason Bison, Joe Wheeling, Dan James, Julie James Ott from the James Ranch. And we want to introduce you to the team that brings this to you. This is me, Cynthia James Stewart, the owner of the James Ranch Grill. Mandy Magill, Regenerative Agriculture Educator and Consultant from Durango, Colorado. Jarrod Ferstl, Employee Benefits Broker from Boulder, Colorado. And Allie Mickelson, State Legislative Director from the ASPCA in Denver, Colorado. We thank you very much and appreciate your time and consideration, and we want to thank Good Business Colorado for giving us the opportunity to present this bill proposal. We look forward to starting this beneficial incentive for Colorado's restaurants, farmers, ranchers, soil, and citizens.